This is the new project. It's a aluminium hardtail I picked up during the last council cleanup. So the next stop, if I didn't grab it, was landfill. But I thought the color just jumped out at me. So I kind of grabbed it and threw it in the car before I even knew what I had my hands on. Now, I knew this bike retailed at around $600 or $700 Australian dollars. So not a particularly high-end bike to start with. And as you can see, all it really needs to get back on the road is a set of wheels, a seat post and a saddle. But with the price of bike parts, you can see it doesn't really make sense to go out and buy a new wheel set, seat post and saddle for a bike that only costs $600 to $700 to start with. That is unless you're planning on doing something a little bit different. Put simply, we're going to be going with a 1x10 drivetrain, put some hydraulic brakes on it, new wheel set obviously, and do something with the fork because let's face it, this one is equal parts steel, rust, and just awfulness. I don't think the microphone picks it up, but the headset's gone as well. Seat post from the parts bin and collar from eBay, just so I don't upset everyone by clamping on the top tube. These are Tektro mechanical discs, and I wouldn't have had a problem having mechanical disc brakes except the lever is an integrated unit with the 3x8 gear shifters, and obviously because I want to go 1x10 I would have to have gotten new levers anyway for the mechanical calipers, and I happen to have a spare set of hydraulic brakes, so we'll just do that instead. Looks like I'm taking the crankset off after all. So the headset bearings on this fork sounded awful, and you probably could just repack the bearings with grease and get away with it, but you can see as we're starting to lower the fork out now that it's basically just full of water and rust. A lot of steel and a pretty heavy fork. The frame is cleaned and polished, so now it's time to talk forks. This Fox fork comes in at 1.81 kilos and it was going to be the crown jewel of my build. I got a really good price on it online until I got it home and realised that the reason I got a really good price is because the steerer tube is not a standard taper tube but a giant OD2 or overdrive 2 standard, which is basically useless. Here's the original Suntour fork coming in at 2.84 kilograms. And finally, a RockShox Recon straight steerer tube, so it's going to fit the frame. QR dropout, so I do have to get some adapters for the front wheel. Coming in at 2.03 kilograms, probably get underneath 2 kilos after I trim the steerer tube. It's not a Fox, it's not what I wanted, but it will do the job and it will be a significant improvement over the original Suntour that was on this bike. And back to the frame set. Time to put the headset in. I've just gone with a generic eBay headset, trying to stick to the budget, what's left of it anyway. fork's installed, I'm just going to stick on the old stem to keep things in place until we work out what we're doing there. So I'm a bit of a sucker for shiny, colourful things, so it was a no-brainer when I needed some rotor bolts. So the group set I've gone with is a mix of a Chinese eBay brand called Z-Race and some Shimano components. It came in this box, so I'm sure it's totally legit. The Shimano components may or may not be counterfeit. The Shimano components were the derailleur. Here's the official Shimano packaging. Just a Dior derailleur. And the matching shifter. Ten speed cassette, as well as the chain. Oh, and the chain ring. Chain ring is a narrow wide 34 tooth. Quite a few of the components were really badly weathered. The non-drive side crank arm, this is after I've cleaned it, but if you have a look at the brake caliper adapter there, which is meant to be a shiny black, you can see just how weathered it is. And all I've done is a bit of automotive cut and polish on the drive side crank, and you can see it's come up really good. I'll just do the non-drive side and then you can see how easily that pops up. Now you can see the non-drive side's got a bit of shine to it. Now what I really should be doing is painting those raw tabs there, so when I put the chain ring on, it doesn't stand out so much, but we're kind of running out of time on this project, so I'm just going to slap the chain ring on as is. If you're doing a one-by conversion, these shorter chain ring bolts can save you a lot of time, meaning you're not having to shim the crank arms there. In this case, these ones are just a bit too shallow. You see, once we've got them on the chain ring, they don't stick through at all, and there's nothing to sort of hold the chain ring in place, and you've got quite a bit of play in the male section of those bolts. If we use a slightly longer chain ring bolt, you see it sticks through a little bit, and then when you pop your crank arm on, you've actually got that female part of the bolt holding things in place. I've skipped ahead a little bit. I've put the chain on, we've got a saddle on. The steer tube has been trimmed, still left plenty of adjustment in there. And now we've got the original stem on, but I've put on a wider set of handlebars that I had, that I did hint that I was going to do that. The stem, I've got some new bolts that I'll use to dress that up a little bit. It's the original stem. It also just needs a bit of a polish, so that might clean that up a little bit. It may end up needing to be swapped out for a shorter one once we get the rider onto the bike, but we'll deal with that at that point. So the brakes I had lined up for this were the Elixir R's, and they were very soft, so I'm hoping that a bleed resolves that. I've got some new pads for those as well. And other than that, it's a matter of finishing off the rest of the cockpit, the shifter, tuning the gears, and we are ready for a test ride. Okay, the shifter's installed, gears are tuned, mostly. And I can confirm the brakes need a bleed, so I'm just going to shorten the cables first, then give them a bleed, put in the new pads, and if that doesn't resolve them, then I'd say they are destined for the trash, and we'll come up with a new solution for brakes. Great. Okay, so now the cables, hoses are a much more sensible length. They still need a bleed and those new pads, and hopefully that is enough to make these brakes a worthy addition to this bike. Almost done. Look, if anyone's thinking of being a bike mechanic as a career, hats off to you, but first bleed a set of hydraulic brakes, preferably an old set of hydraulic brakes, and then do it again and again and again, and if you love it and you're good at it, then go for it. But as for me, it is definitely my least favourite job. And we've got some foam grips to put on from Richie, and I think we're done. I also snuck on a nice new set of pedals while no one was watching. It turns out the nice rainbow bolts I bought are the wrong size, so these rusty ones will have to do. At least I know these will fit.